At one point in time, Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan were one of the biggest rap duos in hip-hop, dropping a mixtape that critics called the best collaborative project of the decade. The duo had a chemistry so potent it is yet to be recreated today, cementing a legacy that would last forever. However, even with so much success, they barely lasted a year together, as after dropping one of the biggest hip-hop songs ever in Lifestyle, we would never see the duo again. So what happened to Rich Homie Quan and Young Thug? Why did one of the most successful rap duos randomly fall apart, and was it deeper than the music? Rich Homie Quan and Young Thug had actually known each other before the music, as they attended the same high school together, where Thug was in the 6th grade and Quan was 2 years older in the 8th.
We met in middle school. He was just younger than me. I was in the 8th grade, he was in the 6th.
But it wasn't like the two were close friends or even really knew of each other. Nevertheless, quite a coincidence. Now fast forward a couple of years, 20-year-old Young Thug began making some noise in Atlanta around 2011, whilst the 21-year-old Rich Homie Quan would actually be spending 15 months in the county jail for a series of burglaries he committed, with this time locked away actually motivating Quan to start rapping. In a 2014 interview with XXL, he reflected on his time in prison. When I got locked up, I started to think about everything I was good at. When I was a kid, I loved to read. Literature was my favorite subject. I loved creating writing classes. So when I got locked up, I read my first book in jail. I have been reading for years, but I read my first book in jail with understanding. When I learned how to really read a book, it took my mind to another place. So after that, then I started writing poems, and after that my poems didn't sound like poems. They sounded like rhymes. I was like, let me see if I can put it on a beat. 6 months into his sentence, Quan would begin rapping for inmates in exchange for snacks, which not only allowed him to keep his stomach full, but to also develop his rapping skills for when he gets released.
When I first got in jail, I didn't even rap my first 6 months in there. Nobody even knew I rapped. I freestyled. They were like, Quans Rich, we didn't even know you rap. I had 31 inmates in there every night. Quan, you gotta rap tonight, bro, before we go to sleep. I was the radio, man. I was in there rapping for snacks, man. So when I started saying that right there, when I saw that 6 months in, that's when I said, them burglars, I'm finna focus strictly on rap.
Though after his release from prison, it was tough for Quan. Not only did he have to live out his mum's garage that had 2 cars in it and no AC, but people also struggled to take his music seriously. No one took me seriously. By the time I dropped my first mixtape, I knew I wasn't ready. I wanted to let the streets be my observation. Quan kept on grinding though, recording on his laptop in his mum's garage, whilst also getting some studio time due to his close friend Tezzy, who he said was the first person who actually believed in his rapping. No one had ever invested anything, let alone their time, just to hear my vision. He was the first person I felt comfortable with. I never talked to my mum like that, and I never talked to my dad like that. From then on, the two would spend almost every single day with each other in Quan's first 6 months back in the free world, with Quan now sleeping and living in the studio with Tezzy, where he had even offered Quan a deal to sign to his label Loyalty Over Royalties. During this period, Quan would also meet his label mate Mafio. With similar work styles and determined attitudes, the two decided to form a group called No Sleep Gang. The group's name served as homage to all their night work habits and countless hours spent doing what they love, creating music. Quickly gaining momentum, the No Sleep Gang acquired a following, with many anticipating the release of their first project titled Money Season. However, tragedy would strike, as just 2 weeks before the release of their debut tape, Tezzy would pass away after being shot by his girl. Not only did this split up the No Sleep Gang, but it also made Quan want to quit rapping, as the only person that actually believed in him, the only person who he felt comfortable speaking to, ended up passing away.
Cause I was in a group with that with my boy, shout out Mafio. We was in a group, but when Teezy died, it's like everybody separated, man. You know what I'm saying? And at that moment, I was like, man, I don't even want to rap no more, because the person like that who was believing in me died, and for 6 months I was with him every day.
Really? He got killed, or?
Yeah, a girl killed him.
But Quan didn't give up. Some time after Tezzy's passing, Quan would go to Mafio, who lived only 4 houses away from where Quan was living at with his mum, and take the leftover recording equipment he had. It would take 3 months for Quan to recover from his friend's passing and begin rapping again, but the hard work and determination would pay off. As soon after restarting his career, Quan would grab the attention of Think It's a Game Records CEO Fly, who would end up signing Quan to his label. Eventually, in the August of 2013, Rich Homie Quan released his first hit song, A Type of Way, giving Quan the respect he wanted so badly from the streets, with the song becoming a smash hit, peaking at the 50th spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Later on in 2013, Quan would land himself another hit song as he was featured on YG's My Fella, alongside Jeezy, with this song having immense success, peaking on the 19th position on the Billboard Hot 100. Now at this point in time in late 2013, Rich Homie Quan was the next big superstar coming up in Atlanta. But Quan wasn't the only rapper in Atlanta to make a huge buzz for himself in 2013, as Young Thug, who at the time was signed to Gucci Mane's 1017 label, would also make a name for himself with his tape 1017 Thug, alongside his breakout singles Danny Glover and Stoner. But as Gucci Mane was sent to jail in the September of 2013, Thug no longer had anyone to guide him into mainstream success, which was until Cash Money CEO Birdman saw the potential Thug had and believed he could mentor him into a superstar. As if you didn't know, Birdman's Cash Money Records has been home to several major artists who he signed, including Lil Wayne, Drake, and Nicki Minaj. Anyways, eventually, after not seeing each other since high school, the two upcoming artists would reunite and began making music towards late 2013, with one of the first songs they would produce together being Get TF Out of My Face, which ended up dropping on Quan's mixtape I Promise I Will Never Stop Going In, released on the 11th of November in 2013. Now Thug and Quan would build a very strong relationship during this period, recording every day and becoming very close friends, which would eventually lead to Thug introducing Quan to Birdman.
Get the fuck out my face, the first song we do, and after we do that song, me and Thug build a relationship. We just working every day. And it went from working every day to Quan, but you know, I want you to meet Bird. First day I met Baby, he came to one of my shows in Miami. He was like, nephew, pull up on me at the studio. I got one I want you to hear. Rightfully so, I pull up to the studio. He hit Spacebar. The rest is history, bro. The first time I met Birdman, went straight to the studio, we did Lifestyle. I promise to God. And we were shooting the video 2 days later.
Quan would meet Birdman at a show he was doing in Miami. After the performance, the two would go to a studio where Birdman played Lifestyle to Quan and told him to record a verse for the song, where honestly, the rest is history. The song would officially release on the 5th of June in 2014, peaking at the 16th position on the Billboard Hot 100, with the music video sitting on over 600 million views on YouTube, becoming a rap song that would go down in the history books. After this platinum hit, Thug and Quan would become an iconic duo, presented by Birdman as Rich Gang, which led to them releasing an entire 20-song mixtape together in the September of 2014, which further boosted the two's reputation, receiving only positive reviews and garnering titles such as Why Rich Gang's The Tour Part 1 is the best collaborative project of the decade. With the duo's first mixtape receiving so much success, they would begin working on their second mixtape titled The Tour 2. However, unfortunately for the fans, as we progressed further and further into late 2014, we would see Thug and Quan less and less for no apparent reason. Like seriously, fans in 2014 and 2015 were just confused. Thug and Quan were this absolute hit-making duo, dropping hits after hits, both coming up out of the streets of Atlanta, and now they're suddenly broken up? I mean, even in interviews when they would be asked, what happened to Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan? The two would refuse to speak on the matter, and they always answered around the question.
What happened with Young Thug? What's the story there? You guys are friends and then the whole thing fell apart there? Where are you guys now on this?
Me and Young Thug, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you know, like we can't, yeah, you know, he'll always be my brother for life, man. You know, no hard feelings.
And about that time, it just felt like things start falling apart between you and Quan, and then Birdman and Wayne and...
Nah, it's a pause. We
Yeah.
ain't really saying eye to eye.
but we don't really have no problem with each other.
Okay.
As time went on, the situation got even weirder, as at a show in the December of 2015, a male fan would try grab Quan's leg, to which he responded with, "I'm not Young Thug," which was Quan saying he isn't as colourful as Young Thug, who is well known for wearing dresses and in general showing off his feminine side.
Get your ass up, man. Hey bro, get way back away from me, away from me. I'm saying, bro, you back up here, look over on the right now, bro, make sure
It seemed like Thug would see what Quan said about him and didn't take too well to his comments, which led to him putting out a tweet in response. "Homie, your little career almost over," suggesting that Rich Homie Quan's career was at a downwards trajectory, soon to reach an end, leading to him doing these antics to keep his name in the loop. But later on that same day, Thug would forgive Quan as he would tweet, "He didn't mean to say that, I'ma give him a pass," with it looking like the two were resolving the issues behind the scenes. Eventually though, Young Thug would bite back to this diss, and at a show a couple months down the line would call him B Homie Quan.
Speaking of horses, you saw the video, man. This stupid lame ass trailer. That fucking Quan. Hey.
And even though they were publicly dissing each other, in interviews all fans got was the usual response of answering around the question or even saying that they are on good terms.
What's the relationship with Quan, with Rich Homie?
No, we don't have no problem.
When's the last time you talked to Thug?
I ain't talked to him in a minute. Still my brother though. You know.
Still your boy, of course, you know. No love lost like that, right?
You know, you doing his solo career, I'm doing mine. Wishing the best. See each other at the top.
So the question is, what happened to Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan? Now for this segment, I'm going to need you guys to have a lot of patience as there is a lot of context to the story. Let's bring it back to 2013, where at this point in time, Rich Homie Quan had just signed to Fly's TIG Records. Well, you see, Quan wasn't the only artist signed to Fly, as another popping Atlanta rapper, YFN Lucci, would also be part of TIG Records. Now Lucci is from Summerhill in Zone 3 of Atlanta, with him associating with ABG, known as the Atlanta Blood Gangs or Anybody Get It, then Young Thug also being affiliated with the Bloods but being from an opposing Zone 3 area, Cleveland, where at first he'll be part of the Rock Crew, short for Raised on Cleveland, with the Rock Crew eventually transitioning into what we now know as YSL, or Young Stoner Life, or even Young Slime Life, with Thug being the alleged leader of this gang. Now Thug and Lucci were quite similar in a way. As many of you will know, YSL is known as a street gang but also as a music label, creating legal opportunities to get his friends and family out of the streets. With Lucci doing the same, his group YFN standing for Young Fly Fella, which he created with his brother and a group of close friends, with it apparently being just an innocent music group, when in reality we know that it's a front for a street gang. Now in the beginning there was no issues between YFN and YSL, they were both just groups that coexisted in Atlanta. Now let me introduce you to someone called Big Nut, a massively respected blood in Atlanta who had connections with everyone in the industry, having ties to both Thug, Lucci and Quan. There is a clip online of Thug showing respect to Nut as he called him the biggest blood in Atlanta, displaying how the streets viewed him.
We wanna be right here. I got one of the biggest bloods in America with me, my you did Atlanta, Georgia. You get what I'm trying to tell you? That we gonna fight.
Then Lucci, well, Nut helped him out immensely in his career, as Nut would introduce Lucci to Fly and told him that Lucci was going to become a big artist, which allowed Lucci to release his first mixtape under the TIG label, giving him a huge head start in his career, as before this no one knew who he was.
Now you're the close friend named Nut.
He just believed that, man. We became close over the time when I met him. So he was like a big brother.
And he was really pushing for you to really
Yeah, he introduced me to
Take that
Fly.
shit serious.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna introduce you to Fly. Shit, Fly got down Rich Homie on, you know what he doing.
And then Nut and Quan, well, Nut managed Rich Homie Quan for a while when he was under TIG Records. Now, as Lucci and Quan were signed to the same label, they would of course release music together, with Quan featuring on Lucci's debut mixtape Wish Me Well, released in late 2014. Now, as many of you will remember, earlier in this video I told you guys as we moved into late 2014, Thug and Rich Homie Quan were not seen as much with each other for no apparent reason. Well, you know what else happened in late 2014? In September, Rich Homie Quan's father's shop would be shot up in a robbery attempt in Atlanta, with him receiving a gunshot wound which he would end up recovering from in hospital. And just 4 months later after that, Donovan Thomas, who you will know as Big Nut, and 2 others aged 20 and 14 would be victims of a drive-by shooting outside of A&M Barbershop in South Atlanta, with Nut unfortunately succumbing to his injuries later that night. Now, of course, Nut's murder was a big loss to the streets, a highly respected blood with connections to near everyone in the city, but the question was, why and who murdered Big Nut? Well, at the time, there was no news of police finding a suspect. However, in the streets there was rumors it was the work of YSL, allegedly a hit put out by Young Thug. And as Nut was extremely close with Lucci, this ended up causing a gang war between YSL and YFN, with the streets being divided. You had to choose, you were YSL or YFN, with police stating that the murder of Big Nut led to 37 different street crimes, which I covered in my Victims of Young Thug video, which you should watch if you want to know about the war between YSL and YFN in more detail. Now look, imagine you're Rich Homie Quan in this situation. You're part of an insanely successful rap duo with Young Thug, but you're also extremely close with your label mate YFN Lucci. It seemed like Quan had a tough decision to make, and with the rumors of Nut's murder being the work of YSL, I'm presuming Quan didn't want to associate with YSL anymore due to the work they were doing in the streets. Due to the gang war between YSL and YFN, Quan took a step back as he didn't want to get himself involved in a dangerous beef that could get him killed, especially with the fact that Big Nut was just murdered and his father's barbershop got shot up a couple months prior. Now, of course, what I just told you is technically all theory, as we don't actually know what happened. Well, watch this interview clip of when academics confronted Quan about the situation.
So this is my theory. You tell me. Yeah, you tell me if I'm just like.
I got
nigga,
you keep 100 with you.
Number one, you're signed to Think It's a Game.
Yes.
You got Lucci as your label mate.
Yeah.
You and Thug was rocking for a while.
Yeah.
That I don't know what happened there. We always wanted to hear the answer.
Okay.
Never got it.
Okay.
You fell back.
Okay.
And this is what I'm thinking.
Talk.
Some probably was happening, either street, whatever. You just didn't want to be a part of it. You fell back, and through that fallback, fans who are just only used to seeing music was like, "What the happened?" You know what I mean?
Sometimes the best answer is no answer, and that answered out everything you just said.
Right on the money.
You know what I'm saying?
So academics tried asking Quan about the street stuff, but he didn't really want to speak about it. So it seems like the street stuff was the reason Quan didn't want to get involved. And honestly, I'm not surprised. The stuff that went down between YSL and YFN was horrific. Lucci's house was shot up multiple times with his mother getting hit. His car was shot up, Thug's friends were getting shot at, and Big Nut's grave got vandalized as someone spray painted it green with the word slap. Of course, representing Thug's YSL. But we're not done yet. As the years went by, more information started coming out about the situation with Rich Homie Quan and Young Thug. So when Thug and Quan were part of Birdman's Rich Gang, they weren't actually signed to Rich Gang. Quan was still signed to TIG and Thug was still signed to Atlantic.
I had a situation with TIG. Thug was signed to Atlantic. It was like it was never a group. You know what I'm saying? And at this time, like, I'm not even knowing, like, he put it out as a group. You know what I'm saying? As I get older, it's like, collectively, like, I know my paperwork's great. So long as this you know, I know my lawyer them got my back. So long as if it gets spent, I'm gonna get paid. You know what I'm saying?
Which meant Birdman was most definitely losing out on a lot of money as their labels were probably taking big cuts. And as we know, Birdman loves his money, probably a little bit too much. As if you didn't know, he's currently being sued by his former artist Lil Wayne for upwards of 50 million. So yeah, Birdman doesn't play about his money. But really, to you guys watching, this probably doesn't give you many ideas. What does two artists already being signed mean anything? Well, let's fast forward to the May of 2022 to when Young Thug had been initially arrested for the YSL RICO. Now, one of the things Thug was being charged for was for the commission of the murder of Donovan Thomas, Big Nut. Basically, the state thinks Thug put out a hit on him. In the indictment it states, defendant Jeffrey Williams, an associate of YSL, did rent a 2014 Silver Infiniti Q50 sedan from Hertz Rent-A-Car, which was used in the commission of the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., a rival gang member, on the 10th day of January 2015, which is an act of racketeering activity under OCGA 1614(3) 5B and an overt act in further of the conspiracy. So as you can see, it was no longer just rumors in the streets that YSL committed the murder of Donovan Thomas. The police now thought it too. Now, just around a year after Thug's arrest, audio would leak of what it sounds like Rich Homie Quan talking to investigators.
Yeah, you seen that long, you know that? Right. So my hand was on the spot. I saw him, we had a show together. I was like, I'm just asking myself. Everybody been talking about it. I'm gonna just be a man and answer myself. Right. Scrub, man. What has something to do with what you can't prove. Right. Period. I ain't no rat, I ain't telling no. I'm just being real with y'all. I got how much I love nut, man. You know what I'm saying? I like that for enough, bro. So, why did you suspect Young Thug when you went down to Miami? Because people told you, or did you have some beef with Young Thug at the time that kind of let you know? I ain't had no beef, bro. People that rap, man. I really feel as if they was jealous of the relationship. Because you guys seem to be getting along real well before.
So in that audio clip of what was apparently Rich Homie Quan talking to police and detectives, you can hear him say that people knew Thug got Big Nut killed, just nobody can prove it, where Quan would then also talk about how much love he has for Nut and that him and Thug actually had no beef, further stating it was deeper than rap. But alongside this audio leak, there would also be paperwork released of his interview with the investigators, which revealed a lot of things we didn't know before. So I'll read out the paperwork to you, but a lot of it is cut off, so I'm gonna have to miss out a couple things or guess what it would say if I had the full transcript. He, in reference to Quan, said that he and Young Thug were cool up until Mr. Thomas's murder. RHQ, Rich Homie Quan, reiterated that he last spoke with Young Thug in Miami as stated above, and that he no longer desires to carry on a friendship or business relationship with Young Thug. He said that Mr. Thomas's murder served as a catalyst for the rift between him and Young Thug. In addition, Rich Homie Quan didn't trust Young Thug on the night of the Miami nightclub Canard described above. So what it just said there is that literally the murder of Nut caused the breakup of Quan and Thug. At about 13:20 into the interview, Quan stated, "Straight up man, fellas know Thug had something with it. We just can't prove it. Point blank, period." I asked Rich Homie Quan why he suspected that Young Thug involved in Mr. Thomas's murder. He explained that there was no active beef between him and Thug at the time of Mr. Thomas's murder, and that was deeper than rap, man. I really feel Thug was jealous of the relationship that Nut was building with Bird. I mentioned that media coverage, both him, Quan and Young Thug during the summer of 2014 appeared to depict an amicable and prosperous relationship between the two men. To this, Quan remarked, "Yeah, we were. Look, listen man, everything about it, like you know what I'm saying. I'm cool with Thug, I don't have anything against him. It's just that type of situation where I feel like betrayed, it was betrayal." At about 14:40 into the interview, Quan became more agitated as he recalled Young Thug's something demeanor in Miami nightclub immediately following Mr. Thomas's death. I'm guessing it's calm demeanor, since Nut just got killed yet he's calm. In the midst of something, the night my truck got shot up, I called Thug like, man, I don't know what happened, what y'all got going on? Well, my truck ended up getting hit, you feel me? One of your fellas, something for my truck, straight up. So it seemed like on the same night Donovan Thomas was murdered, Rich Homie Quan's truck got shot up. So now on this second picture of the paperwork, Rich Homie Quan next stated that he believed the September 29th, 2014 shooting of his father inside the barbershop was also connected to the murder of Donovan Thomas. I asked Rich Homie Quan why Young Thug would have targeted his father. He replied, because at the time we was all doing shows together. I was getting the most money though, and they wanted my dad out the picture, cause you know, everybody want the management. They know I'm not going nowhere without my dad, and they know he at the barbershop 24/7 every day. Rich Homie Quan elaborated, however, that he had no proof of these allegations. At about 21:55 into the interview, he mentioned that Birdman and his father got into an argument about what he did not know. Rich Homie Quan explained that after this argument his father told him, come on, we're gonna fall back from them. Rich Homie Quan opined that his theory regarding the shooting of his father just made sense. Take my dad out of the picture, man, you can get me to sign with whoever you want to sign. At 22:50 into the interview, I asked Rich Homie Quan why he didn't want to sign with Birdman's Cash Money Records. Quan explained that other artists signed to that label consistently complained about their financial situation as it related to their contract with said label. Quan also believed that he stood to make more money on his own than he would with Cash Money Records. Quan stated that while he did not contact Young Thug after Donovan Thomas's murder, Young Thug also did not contact him. He said that Young Thug moved out of the Sky House condominiums probably 2 weeks after Donovan Thomas's murder. Quan explained that he never saw Thug at the Sky House after Nut got murdered. I asked Quan about Young Thug's March 2015 onstage utterance, wherein he called Quan Homie Quan. Quan didn't know why Young Thug did that. Well, it was probably because Quan dissed him a couple weeks prior at a show. 25:25 into the interview, I asked Quan for Young Thug's phone number. He provided me with number, the same being the number I'd previously identified as belonging to Young Thug. He next something me with another number, the same being unknown to me at the time. I asked Quan if the something numbers were those that he utilized to connect directly with Young Thug, rather than something Amina Dia. Quan told me that the numbers he provided were Young Thug's direct connect. Something Quan if Young Thug ever texted him any threatening messages. To which he responded, no, he's smarter than that. Rich Homie Quan stated that if Young Thug had a problem with Donovan Thomas, that he wouldn't say anything about it around Quan because Young Thug knew that Donovan Thomas was Rich Homie Quan's dog. Quan said that Mr. Thomas never told him about a quarrel with Thug, but advised him to separate himself from them. Quan didn't know why Mr. Thomas something it's prudent for him to dissociate himself from Birdman and Young Thug, but opined that he something gotten a bad vibe somewhere. Quan stated that Birdman was in contact with his father, something was in contact with Donovan Thomas with respect to Cash Money Records, courtship of Quan. So as you can see, it is all kind of coming together now. Rich Homie Quan and Thug were blowing up and making money together as part of Rich Gang. But as I stated before, they weren't signed to Birdman even though they were part of his collective. This meant he wasn't profiting as much as he could have been from them. Now in the paperwork I just read, Quan explained how they tried taking out his father because they knew he had a lot of influence on Quan's career. But with him dead, they couldn't convince him to sign to Birdman. In that paperwork, Quan also stated that they shot up his truck, which wasn't something we've heard of before, which gives us more proof that the reason Quan pulled out of Rich Gang was because he didn't want to get involved in the street stuff. And then finally, the murder of Big Nut. Quan said that it was because Thug was worried about the relationship Nut was building with Birdman. So to put it in perspective, after Quan formed Rich Gang with Thug, he himself got shot at, his father's barbershop and his father got shot at, and his manager was murdered. To me, it makes quite a lot of sense why Quan didn't want to be around Thug anymore, especially with the suspicion that Thug was behind all of this. And I mean, the suspicion that Thug played some part in it would basically be confirmed after YSL associate Lil Woody would admit in court that he shot up Rich Homie Quan's father's barbershop.
Young, you say nothing I say can be used against me?
That's right.
Me and Threat shot up Rich Homie Quan Dad at the barbershop on Bankhead.
Now, not only did Woody admit to shooting up Quan's father's shop, but it would also be revealed in the YSL Rico trial that back in 2015, he was originally arrested and charged with the murder of Big Nut, but would eventually be released. And as time went on, we would continue getting more and more information about why Rich Homie Quan and Young Thug fell out. As in a 2024 interview, Lil Woody would expose how apparently Rich Homie Quan started talking bad about Thug at shows.
He ended his career when he chose to go against Thug. He started going to shows and started talking about Thug. See, Thug was always, you know, Rich Homie, my boy.
Yeah.
And then he went saying, told somebody, get away from me looking like a young thug. And
he went on stage.
They did.
Cracking jokes on him a little bit, yeah.
So for me, personally, I think it was the street stuff that caused Rich Homie Quan to pull out of Rich Gang. He himself was shot at, they tried to kill his father to have more control over his career, and then even murdered his manager. Again, probably to have more control over his career. Then the street war that broke out between YSL and YFN, with Quan being cool with both sides, he just probably didn't want to get in the middle of something that could end his life. Now, from searching around some forum sites, it seems like hardcore fans of the duo also believe that the street stuff had something to do with the end of Rich Gang. Quan's manager Big Nut was gunned down at a barbershop, and it was likely Thug who ordered the hit. There's evidence in the YSL indictment that point to this being true. Big Nut was also heavily connected and apparently a leader of the Inglewood Bloods. YFN Lucci said, the killing of Nut is what started the YSL versus YFN beef that eventually led to both crews getting taken down by Rico. Seems like at the time, Thug probably wanted Quan to sign with Birdman and release their music with Quan through Cash Money Records, but Quan didn't want to, so he tried to force him by shooting up his car and his dad's barbershop, almost killing his dad. Then a few months later, killed Big Nut, his manager. Wonder if since Thug's manager was close to Birdman, they realized Quan was unsigned and popular and they could extort him into a bad deal and make money off him. But Quan was smart enough not to do it. Wonder if that's why Gunner turned on Thug as well. Thug probably got him signed to a terrible deal, knowing he was soft as well, and did him the way they tried to do Quan back then. And to kind of add to the timeline of events, on the 30th of September in 2014, Quan's father's barbershop was shut up. Then in the January of 2015, just a couple months later, Big Nut was killed. And then just a month later, in the February of 2015, Quan does an interview where he announces he is taking a break from Rich Gang. I don't know, man, that kind of seals it for me. Way too many things line up for it just to be a coincidence. But I think what's the craziest part is that Quan and Thug have stayed silent about all of this for just around the past 10 years. Not a single word has come out about any of them about this. Every time they just try to play it off as, you know, they just grew apart or egos got in the way. But that's how Young Thug betrayed Rich Homie Quan. Of course, now with Quan unfortunately passing just a couple weeks ago, it seems like we will never actually know the story from his side. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, have a good day, rest in peace Rich Homie Quan, and I'll see you guys in the next one.